There comes a moment when the life you built starts to feel too small for the person you're becoming. You wake up one day and realize you've outgrown the lies that kept you comfortable. The people, the habits, the version of yourself that once fit perfectly now feel like a cage. It's not depression. It's not failure. It's transformation. The darkness isn't trying to destroy you. It's trying to show you who you really are when the mask falls away. You'll lose things you once begged to keep. You'll question everything you thought was truth. But if you can stand still in the storm, if you can face the silence without running, you'll meet the version of yourself that you've been praying to become. And when that happens, you'll understand why the darkness was never your enemy. It was your initiation. Chapter 1. The Silence Before the Storm. There's a strange quiet that comes before everything changes. Not peace, just quiet. The kind that makes your chest feel heavy and your thoughts too loud to escape. You sense something's coming, but you can't name it. You just know life's about to shift. People start drifting. Your plans stop working. Your energy feels off. The universe starts rearranging the pieces of your life like it's preparing for demolition. And you, standing in the middle of it, can't tell if you're being punished or prepared. That's the thing about spiritual transformation. It rarely announces itself. It shows up disguised as boredom, heartbreak, disappointment, or loss. It steals your comfort so it can hand you clarity. But in the beginning, it just feels like destruction. You'll try to pray it away. You'll beg God to make it make sense, but He stays silent. And in that silence, you realize how addicted you were to noise, to being busy, distracted, validated, seen. Now there's nothing but stillness. And you. That's where the real war begins. Because when everything goes quiet, the voices you've been running from start speaking again. The regrets you buried, the dreams you gave up on, the truths you didn't want to face. They crawl out of the dark corners of your mind, demanding attention. And you realize that your biggest enemy was never the world. It was the version of you that settled for less because it was safer. This silence exposes everything. It humbles you. It strips away your image, your certainty, your illusion of control. You start seeing that most of your peace was just distraction. Most of your strength was just survival. And most of the people who clapped for you were only comfortable when you stayed small. So when life gets quiet, it's not the end, it's the invitation. The silence is sacred. It's God pulling you away from the noise so you can finally hear the truth. In that stillness, you'll realize something. You weren't losing your way, you were being redirected. See, growth doesn't happen when you're surrounded by applause. It happens when everything goes still and you have to face the version of yourself you've been avoiding. That's when your ego starts breaking and your soul starts speaking. The silence before the storm isn't punishment, it's alignment. It's the part where you shed everything that can't survive your next chapter. You'll feel the ache of isolation, but that's how rebirth starts. The caterpillar doesn't become the butterfly in company, it does it in confinement. Alone, unseen, wrapped in darkness, breaking apart quietly before becoming something unrecognizable. That's you right now, breaking in the cocoon, learning to trust what doesn't make sense yet. You don't need to rush through this season, you just need to surrender to it. Let the silence do its work. Let the loneliness stretch your faith. Let the uncertainty strip your pride. Because soon, that quiet will start to shift. The energy around you will start to move again. The things that fell apart will start revealing their purpose. And one day, you'll look back and realize the silence wasn't empty after all. It was full of everything you needed to hear. It was preparing you for everything you're meant to become. Chapter 2. The Death of Who You Thought You Were. No one tells you that becoming your higher self feels like dying first. They talk about healing like it's a glow-up. But the truth is, it's grief. It's the funeral of everything fake that you built to survive. The version of you that smiled when they were breaking. The version that played small just to be loved. The version that pretended not to care so they wouldn't get hurt again. All of them start slipping away. And even though you know they were never real, it still hurts to let them go. Because those versions of you kept you alive. They got you through trauma, heartbreak, rejection, and survival seasons. They were armor. But armor gets heavy once the war is over. And when God decides it's time for peace, He'll make sure that armor starts cracking. That's when you start feeling lost. Not because you've gone backward, but because the identity you've been carrying no longer fits. Your soul outgrew it, and now it's shedding the old skin. The death of who you thought you were doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a slow unraveling, one painful truth at a time. You start realizing that your confidence was built on performance. Your peace depended on people. Your worth came from validation. And once all that fades, you're left face to face with your raw self, asking, who am I now? That's where the ego starts screaming. It hates uncertainty. It craves control. It wants to keep you in familiar pain rather than unknown peace. So it fights to convince you that growth means loss, that humility means weakness, that change means danger. But the soul knows better. The soul whispers, trust me, you're not dying, you're remembering. When the old self begins to die, you'll notice strange things. People fall away. Your interests change. Silence becomes addictive. Chaos becomes intolerable. The noise of the world starts sounding fake. Small talk feels heavy. You crave depth, solitude, purpose. You stop chasing, start observing. That's when you realize you've been reborn in the quiet. And yet this rebirth isn't pretty. It's raw. It's lonely. It's confusing. You'll cry without knowing why. You'll feel detached from the person in the mirror. You'll miss your old ignorance, the comfort of not knowing what you know now. But this is the sacred death, the burning away of illusion, the collapse of everything you built on fear. And once the fire is done, what remains is truth. You'll start to sense it first, a subtle shift inside you, a voice that feels ancient, calm, and unshakable. It doesn't beg to be understood. It doesn't chase validation. It doesn't panic in the unknown. It just is. That's your real self. The one that existed before pain taught you how to pretend. So if life feels like it's pulling you apart right now, don't fight it. You're not falling apart. You're coming undone. You're unraveling the falsehoods so the truth can breathe again. Let it. Let the old you die with grace. Mourn her. Thank her. Then release her. Because you can't step into your divine purpose while dragging the corpse of who you used to be. This death isn't the end. It's resurrection in disguise. And soon, when the ashes settle, you'll see it clearly. What died wasn't you. It was everything that was keeping you from you. Chapter 3. The Mirror That Doesn't Lie. There comes a point in every transformation where the world stops being the enemy. You stop blaming the past. You stop pointing fingers. And all that's left to face is you. The mirror doesn't lie. It never has. It just reflects the parts you weren't ready to see. You stand there, staring at your own eyes, and realize how much pretending you've done. How many smiles were just survival tactics. How many "I'm fines" were really silent cries for help. It's a painful awakening to see the difference between who you show the world and who you really are when the room gets quiet. That's the moment the mask starts to slip. You start noticing patterns, the relationships that mirrored your wounds, the opportunities you sabotaged because you didn't believe you deserved more, the chaos you called normal because peace felt foreign. It's easy to say, they hurt me. It's harder to say, I kept letting them. The mirror demands honesty, brutal honesty, not the kind that shames you, but the kind that frees you. Because truth, real truth, isn't comfortable. It doesn't flatter the ego. It breaks it. It shines a light on your shadow self, the jealous parts, the insecure parts, the controlling, fearful, manipulative parts you swore you didn't have. And the mirror doesn't judge them. It just exposes them. That's the thing about growth. It doesn't always look graceful. Sometimes it looks like admitting that you were the toxic one, that you avoided accountability by playing victim, that you settled for less because self-worth felt too expensive. When you face that level of truth, something inside you shifts. You stop needing to defend yourself. You stop trying to be right all the time. You start valuing peace over ego. And that's when you realize this is what healing actually feels like. Not perfection, not pretending to be enlightened, but being real enough to admit, I'm still learning. I've been the villain in some stories too. That's what the mirror teaches you. That light and darkness both live inside you, and maturity is learning to love both without letting either control you. You start forgiving yourself not because you deserve a pass, but because you deserve freedom. You stop running from your reflection and start listening to it. You start asking, what is this version of me trying to teach me before she leaves? And in that stillness, the mirror becomes sacred. It becomes a portal showing you what's dying and what's being born at the same time. The more honest you get, the lighter you feel. The more you own your shadow, the more power you reclaim from it. Because here's the truth. When you lie to yourself, you live as your wounds. When you face yourself, you live as your wisdom. The mirror only reflects what's there, but you decide what stays. So look again. Look at the reflection that survived everything designed to break it. Look at the eyes that still carry light, even after everything they've seen. You are not your mistakes. You are the lesson that came from them. And when you can stand in front of the mirror unmasked, unashamed, and honest, that's when you stop seeing your reflection as a reminder of pain and start seeing it as a reminder of power. Because the mirror doesn't lie, but it also doesn't limit. It shows you who you've been, so you can finally become who you were always meant to be. Chapter 4. When Faith Feels Like a Lie. Nobody likes to talk about the nights when faith stops working, when you pray and the silence feels louder than God's voice, when the scriptures you once clung to start sounding like someone else's story, when you start to wonder if maybe you've been talking to yourself all along. You don't lose faith in a single moment. It happens slowly, one unanswered prayer at a time, one heartbreak that should have been a blessing but just broke you instead, one door that never opened even after you did everything right. And then one day, you wake up and realize you're tired. Not just physically, spiritually, emotionally, soul tired. The kind of tired that sleep can't fix. The kind that comes from waiting too long for something you can't even name anymore. That's the best valley nobody prepares you for. The dark night of the soul. When your faith doesn't feel holy, it feels hollow. You start questioning everything. Is God real? Do my prayers even reach? Was it all just wishful thinking? But underneath those doubts, something sacred is happening. Because the death of blind faith is the birth of real faith. The kind that doesn't depend on good days or miracles that make sense. The kind that doesn't crumble when the blessings stop. See, it's easy to believe when everything's working. It's easy to praise when you're winning. But faith isn't proven in the light, it's forged in the dark. When you're on your knees, begging for a sign that never comes, and you still whisper, I trust you. That's faith, not the feeling, the decision. Faith isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a whisper in the middle of chaos saying, I don't know what you're doing, but I'll keep walking anyway. There will be moments when you lose hope, and that's okay. Even Jesus had a moment where he said, My God, why have you forsaken me? That wasn't weakness, that was honesty. Real faith doesn't demand perfection. It demands surrender. When everything collapses and you have nothing left to hold on to, that's when you find out what faith really is. It's not believing that God will fix it your way. It's trusting that He's still good, even when He doesn't. Sometimes He hides not to abandon you, but to break your dependence on certainty. Because certainty is control. And control is the opposite of faith. So when faith feels fake, don't panic. That's just your old belief system dying so something deeper can be born. The version of faith that needs proof is being replaced by the version that finds peace without it. You'll start to see that God was never gone, He was just quiet. Because some lessons only bloom in silence. You can't hear divine instruction when you're begging for divine intervention. The storm teaches you to listen differently, to find comfort in the not knowing, to stop trying to understand everything and start experiencing it. Faith isn't about clarity, it's about trust. And trust is only real when you can't see the outcome. So if you're in that place where your prayers feel like they're bouncing off the ceiling, where your heart is cracked open and nothing makes sense, breathe. You're not faithless. You're evolving. You're being taught to believe, not because life is easy, but because your spirit knows that even in the dark, God is still there. Maybe not fixing everything, but shaping you through everything. And one day, when the light finally breaks through again, you'll look back and realize your faith didn't fail. It just got real. Chapter 5. The Alchemy of Suffering. Pain is the first language the soul ever learned. Before we could speak truth, we bled it. Before we found peace, we were broken enough to go looking for it. Suffering is not punishment, it's purification. But you only realize that once the fire stops burning and you're standing there, scarred but still breathing. When you're in it, though it feels cruel, like the universe forgot your name, like God turned his face away and left you to figure it out alone, you scream, you question, you fight the process. You ask, why me? And silence answers, because you were strong enough to survive it. That's the thing about transformation. It doesn't happen in light. Light reveals. Darkness reshapes. Fire destroys what can't endure, but it also refines what can. Pain is the forge. You are the gold. And every heartbreak, every betrayal, every moment you thought you were done, that was heat being turned up so your impurities could rise to the surface. Not to shame you, but to free you. The alchemy of suffering is brutal honesty. It's realizing that not everything that hurt you was meant to destroy you. Some of it was meant to distill you, to separate what's divine from what's dead weight, to teach you what's real by taking away what's not. You don't evolve through comfort, you evolve through collapse. Comfort protects the ego. Collapse reveals the soul. When everything falls apart, your priorities shift. Money doesn't impress you. Status doesn't fulfill you. Noise doesn't soothe you. You start craving meaning more than validation, depth more than applause, presence more than performance. Suffering teaches you how to see, how to listen, how to sit in pain without becoming it. Because that's the real mastery, not escaping pain, but transforming it, turning resentment into understanding, turning heartbreak into compassion, turning endings into rebirth. That's alchemy, when the thing that tried to kill you becomes the thing that awakens you. The people who hurt you were your mirrors. The betrayals were your boundaries being born. The heartbreaks were your hearts. Expansion disguised as loss. Everything served you, even the fire. One day you'll stop asking, why did I have to go through that? And start saying, I wouldn't have found myself without it. Because the truth is, pain doesn't change you. It reveals you. It strips away the roles you played to survive and shows you what's left when everything else is gone. And what's left is the real you. Unfiltered, unmasked, unapologetically aware. You'll realize that you never actually healed by avoiding pain. You healed by walking straight through it, eyes open, heart open, faith barely hanging on but still moving. You'll stop resenting your past and start revering it. You'll understand that everything that broke you also built you. That the darkness didn't come to end you, it came to initiate you. Pain made you pay attention. It made you deeper, softer, wiser. It burned away your illusions and left only what was real. That's the sacred alchemy. Suffering turns ego into surrender. It turns control into trust. It turns wounds into wisdom. And one day, you'll look at your scars and feel something you never expected. Gratitude, because you'll finally see it clearly. You didn't just survive the fire. You became it. Chapter 6. The Temptation to Go Back. Every rebirth comes with a moment of weakness, when the old world starts calling your name again. You've come so far, but the silence of growth feels too heavy. The peace feels too quiet. The healing feels too lonely. So you start thinking maybe going back wouldn't be so bad. Back to the comfort. Back to the distraction. Back to the version of yourself who didn't know better. It's not stupidity that tempts you, it's nostalgia. You miss how numb felt like peace. You miss how chaos felt like passion. You miss how validation filled the space where self-worth should have been. That's the danger of evolution. It exposes the comfort in dysfunction. You start remembering the old you with rose-colored memory, the one who didn't think so deeply, who didn't overanalyze everything, who could live half asleep, and call it joy. But that was survival, not living. And if you go back now, you'll feel it instantly, that suffocation that once felt safe. The mind loves familiarity. It doesn't care if it's toxic. It just wants predictable pain over uncertain peace. That's why healing is spiritual warfare. You're not just fighting external demons, you're fighting the part of yourself that wants to stay broken, because at least that version knew the rules. You'll start rationalizing your return. Maybe they've changed. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But deep down, you know what's really happening. Your soul is testing your commitment to the new life you prayed for. Because every time you elevate, your past sends an invitation to see if you're serious, if you'll trade your growth for comfort, if you'll settle for half your power just to feel safe again. And if you're not careful, you'll confuse stillness for emptiness and peace for boredom. You'll start craving chaos just to feel alive. That's how the old patterns sneak back in, not because you miss them, but because you miss how predictable they were. But listen, your old life didn't end because it was working. It ended because it was killing you. You can't walk back into the same fire, expecting it not to burn this time. The temptation to go back is proof that you've changed. You wouldn't even feel the conflict if the old you were still in charge. Growth doesn't erase the desire to regress. It gives you the awareness to resist it. That's the power of evolution. You can feel the pull, but still choose forward. And choosing forward isn't glamorous. It's lonely nights where you delete the number but still think about calling. It's scrolling through memories you swore you forgot. It's sitting in the ache of missing what no longer aligns. But that ache is holy. It's your spirit detoxing from old frequencies. It's the pain of expansion. It's proof you're outgrowing what used to own you. The truth is, you can't return to what you've outgrown without shrinking to fit it again. And shrinking is too expensive now. You've worked too hard to rebuild your peace. You've bled too long to forget your worth. You've lost too much to settle for the same kind of pain you already healed from. So when the past calls, let it ring. You don't owe every memory a response. You don't need to prove closure to the places you've already buried. The temptation to go back is just the universe asking, are you ready for more? And when you say yes, truly yes, the door behind you will finally close. Not because you ran from it, but because you outgrew the need to open it again. Chapter 7. Becoming the Watcher. At first, you fight everything. The loss, the silence, the unfamiliar, peace. You claw at the walls of your old life, trying to find a way back into comfort. But then, something strange happens. You get tired of reacting. You stop chasing closure. You stop defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to control outcomes that were never yours to control. And in that exhaustion, you stumble into freedom. That's when you start becoming the watcher. The quiet awareness behind the storm. The consciousness observing the chaos instead of being consumed by it. You begin to notice that thoughts come and go like waves. And you are not the wave, you are the ocean watching them rise and fall. You start seeing emotions as visitors, not definitions. Anger knocks. Sadness lingers. Joy drifts in for a while. But none of them live there permanently anymore. This is the awakening most people never reach. Because detachment feels like death to the ego. It can't stand being ignored. It feeds on reaction, drama, and noise. But when you stop feeding it, it starves. And in that starvation, peace is born. You learn that not every thought deserves your belief. Not every feeling demands your obedience. Not every situation requires your involvement. You start choosing your responses like sacred rituals. You speak slower. You listen deeper. You pause before reacting, not because you're afraid, but because you're powerful enough to stay centered. The watcher sees through illusions. You recognize manipulation without absorbing it. You see projections for what they are, cries for healing from people who haven't met themselves yet. The more you observe, the less you need to control. And the less you control, the lighter you feel. You stop confusing detachment with indifference. Detachment isn't, I don't care. It's, I care deeply, but I refuse to lose myself in the process. When you live as the watcher, you no longer drown in emotion. You learn from it. You don't run from pain. You sit with it until it reveals its lesson. You don't cling to joy. You savor it while it's here and let it go when it leaves. You start trusting the rhythm of life again, the tides, the timing, the unfolding. You realize that nothing truly meant for you requires grasping only alignment. That's the quiet power of awareness. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't perform. It just sees. And once you've seen, you can't unsee. You can't go back to the blindness of reaction. You can't pretend ignorance feels safer than awareness. Because once you've touched that stillness within you, the one that watches without fear, you understand that everything external is temporary. Every storm passes, every emotion shifts, every wound heals when it's witnessed without judgment. You realize the most sacred thing you can ever master is your own attention. Where it goes, your energy follows. Where your energy goes, your reality forms. So you start guarding it like treasure. You stop explaining yourself to everyone. You stop chasing people to prove your worth. You stop fighting for peace and start being it. And that's when you understand the ultimate truth. You were never meant to control the ocean. You were meant to remember you are it. Chapter 8. Reclaiming the Fire. There comes a moment when the numbness fades, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you finally stopped running from yourself. The stillness that once felt empty now starts to glow. A quiet, steady flame begins to rise from the ashes, not wild, not desperate, certain. That's the moment you start reclaiming your fire. You see, most people lose their fire because they burned it in all the wrong places. They poured their energy into proving, pleasing, and performing. They called exhaustion, ambition, and confusion purpose. And somewhere along the way, they mistook chaos for passion. You did too, until the storm stripped it all away. Now, in the aftermath, you see the truth. Your fire was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to direct you. You start to realize that discipline is divine, that peace doesn't mean weakness, that focus isn't obsession, it's worship. You start saying no more often, and it feels like prayer. You stop explaining your silence, and it feels like protection. The fire that once came from anger now comes from awareness. It's not the prove them wrong kind, it's the I don't need to prove anything kind. That's real power. When your energy stops leaking into distractions, it becomes sacred currency. You start investing it wisely into purpose, not people-pleasing, into alignment, not approval, into creation, not chaos. This is the fire the world can't manipulate. It's not loud or dramatic. It doesn't chase. It simply radiates, and everything meant for it gravitates naturally. You start rebuilding differently this time. You move slower, but every move has intention. You speak less, but every word carries weight. You stop running from solitude because you finally see it for what it is, your sanctuary. People will notice the shift. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. And they're right, but they'll never understand what it cost you to become this calm. Because reclaiming your fire means learning how to burn without self-destruction. It means mastering intensity with grace. It means carrying light in a world addicted to darkness without letting the darkness consume you. You stop letting emotions drive you, but you don't suppress them either. You channel them. Pain becomes art. Anger becomes action. Love becomes legacy. That's what maturity feels like: controlled fire, passion with direction, confidence without arrogance, faith without fear. And when that fire returns, everything in your life starts realigning. Old desires fall away, new ones emerge. People who can't stand your light naturally drift. Opportunities you once chased start chasing you. Because when you're in alignment, your fire no longer burns bridges, it lights paths. You finally understand that power isn't in force, it's in focus. It's not in the noise, it's in the knowing. It's not in how bright you shine, it's in how steady you burn. So you guard this flame. You feed it with prayer, solitude, purpose, and truth. You let it refine you every day until every part of you that used to fear the dark becomes the light itself. Because you're no longer chasing the fire. You are the fire. And this time you know how to control it. Chapter 9. The Rebirth Ritual. Rebirth doesn't arrive like sunlight breaking through the clouds. It comes quietly, like a breath you didn't realize you'd been holding, finally letting go. There's no applause, no grand announcement, just a strange stillness, as if the universe is pausing to witness you take your first steps as someone new. For so long you were focused on survival that you forgot what it felt like to create. You forgot what it meant to exist without pain being the background noise of your life. And when that noise fades, it feels disorienting at first. Peace always does. The rebirth ritual isn't a ceremony you perform. It's a series of sacred choices you make every single day. It's waking up and deciding that you will no longer abandon yourself for acceptance. It's forgiving yourself for not knowing better when you didn't. It's giving yourself permission to rest without guilt and to shine without apology. Every sunrise becomes symbolic now. You start noticing beauty again in details you used to rush past. The smell of rain, the weight of silence, the taste of laughter that doesn't hide pain underneath it. You start realizing that peace isn't found, it's built, brick by brick, moment by moment, boundary by boundary. This is the sacred aftermath of transformation. The cocoon has already broken, but your wings are still wet. You don't soar right away. You learn balance. You learn patience. You learn that healing doesn't mean you'll never feel pain again. It means you'll never be owned by it again. In this ritual, solitude becomes celebration. You light candles, not for aesthetics, but for intention. You speak to God without scripts, and you listen more than you talk. You move slower, but somehow accomplish more. You understand that flow isn't laziness, it's alignment. And the people who come back around now, you meet them with grace, not bitterness. Because rebirth taught you discernment without resentment. You can love without losing yourself. You can let go without closing your heart. The new you doesn't seek revenge. The new you seeks peace so deep that chaos feels foreign. You no longer need to prove that you've changed. Your energy speaks for you. There's a calm power in knowing you survived your own evolution, that you faced every fear, every shadow, every illusion, and still chose love over bitterness. That's the highest form of strength, gentle, grounded, unshakable. So you start honoring this version of you. You nourish her, you protect her, you stop forcing growth and start flowing with it. You start thanking your past instead of resenting it, because without those storms, you'd never know this kind of stillness existed. Rebirth isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. It's the homecoming of the soul. So if the world feels quieter now, don't mistake it for emptiness. That quiet is sacred. It's the sound of alignment. It's the heartbeat of destiny syncing with your own. Stand there for a moment. Feel the air on your skin. Feel your pulse steady, your breath deepen. You made it, not as the person who started the journey, but as the one who finally became the reason for it. Chapter 10. The light learns to speak through you. You don't notice the exact second the light returns. One day you simply realize the darkness no longer frightens you. You walk through it with calm steps, knowing it's part of the landscape, not the end of the road. That's how the light begins to speak through you, not as noise, not as preaching, but as presence. You've stopped searching for purpose as if it were hiding somewhere outside of you. Now you live it. Every breath, every boundary, every act of kindness, every silence that protects your peace. You understand that your healing was never meant to make you perfect. It was meant to make you useful. The world doesn't need another flawless voice shouting about enlightenment. It needs the sound of someone who has walked through their own hell and still chooses compassion. You used to beg for answers. Now you realize you are the answer, because your story carries medicine for someone else's pain. Your scars translate languages that words never could. Every time you tell the truth of what you survived, light passes through the cracks and becomes guidance for someone still lost in the storm. This is what divine service really looks like. Not trying to save everyone, just refusing to abandon who you've become. The light speaks when you choose peace over pride. When you forgive even without an apology. When you protect your energy instead of proving your point. When you smile at strangers without needing one back. When you stand firm in boundaries that once felt impossible, that's the language of light. Quiet, consistency, no spotlight, no performance, just authenticity so pure, it changes rooms without a word. You realize now that leadership isn't a title. It's frequency. It's the energy you carry into spaces, the calm in your eyes when others panic, the empathy in your voice when someone expects judgment. You are no longer chasing alignment, you embody it. You don't have to convince anyone anymore, you simply are. And people will feel it. They'll ask what changed. And you'll smile. Because how do you explain that everything broke so the light could fit? How do you describe the grace that grew from ruin? You can't, you can only live it. So you start moving differently now. You walk like prayer. You speak like affirmation. You rest like faith. You give like gratitude. Every day becomes a ceremony of remembrance of the storms that cleansed you, the fires that refined you, the silences that taught you, and the love that resurrected you. You are no longer the student of pain. You are the vessel of wisdom it left behind. The light doesn't erase the darkness. It redeems it. It turns every wound into a window, every scar into scripture, every failure into flame. You've become proof that redemption isn't found, it's created. And when you breathe now, the air itself feels different. Fuller, truer, holy. Because the light that once guided you from the outside now lives inside your bones. It moves when you speak. It glows when you forgive. It multiplies when you love. That's the quiet miracle of it all. You didn't escape the dark. You integrated it until even your shadow began to shine.